Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are taking on a market so colossal, so entrenched, and frankly, so ripe for disruption. It makes nearly every other industry we cover look like a neighborhood shop.
It really does.
We are plunging into the global insurance market. It's a multi-trillion-dollar behemoth, and we're examining how a technology-first challenger is setting itself up to overcome, well, centuries of incumbent dominance.
We absolutely have to establish the scale for you, the listener. This isn't just a large market. It is arguably the single largest pool of capital on the planet.
It's staggering.
It is. Our sources indicate that globally the world spends more on insurance than on AI, auto manufacturing, cloud computing, total defense budgets, oil and gas, semiconductors, or software combined.
All of them combined.
Yeah. The industry giants we're talking about often bring in $200 billion in annual revenue.
An absolute massive economic pillar. So our mission today is to understand the strategic foundation of a company built on a single compelling thesis. Old industry, new structure.
Yeah.
How is technology positioning them to make this market, which is clearly worth fighting for, genuinely winnable against those deeply entrenched giants?
Well, it's winnable because the core of their strategy is to attack the incumbent's structural weakness. What's fundamentally fascinating here is the complete reversal of fortune.
How so?
The assets legacy insurers built up over decades, sometimes centuries. They're now their biggest liabilities. They didn't just build companies, they built organizations optimized for a world that, well, it just doesn't exist anymore.
Okay, let's unpack this liability idea, because the natural assumption is that size equals advantage, right?
Right.
Why is being a $200 billion incumbent now a strategic disadvantage?
Look at the distribution system first. In an era where, 90% of sales are rapidly moving toward app-based direct-to-consumer models, how valuable is a legacy workforce of 40,000 human agents?
It's a huge cost center.
It's not just the cost, it's the lack of control and the friction it introduces. That whole structure is just unfavorable in a modern sales environment.
But the bigger issue has to be culture and technology, right?
Absolutely. Their corporate cultures were built over centuries for preservation, stability, and, slow, careful growth. They fundamentally struggle with the speed and the risk-taking needed for modern business.
So they can't pivot.
They can't. Their entire internal constitution is optimized for inertia.
That sounds like a powerful argument, but here's where I need to challenge you. Why is it structurally impossible for the giants to just buy the new software and adapt?
Because their technology systems are not modern platforms. They are, as the source describes them, black holes.
Black holes.
They consume time, they consume cash relentlessly, and they are so deeply integrated into every function, from claims to pricing, that replacing them would mean, well, shutting down the company for a year, which isn't feasible.
It's a trap.
It's the sunk cost fallacy on an industrial scale. And the challenger's logic contrasts this directly. Instead of a legacy black hole, they aim to be a fast, cheap, black box solution driven entirely by AI.
So, the founding logic is this. A new company, built from scratch with zero legacy debt, running on AI, can fundamentally quantify risk better and cut costs in a way that is structurally impossible for the giants.
That's the thesis.
Okay, that makes sense strategically.
Right.
But 2 years ago, the street consensus was, great idea, but they're burning cash and they haven't proven they can actually underwrite risk effectively.
And that brings us directly to the de-risking phase of the business. 2 years ago, the downside risks were terrifyingly real, specifically around two key metrics: liquidity and their actual ability to manage risk.
Let's start with liquidity, because that was the number one concern. Were they just burning through capital too fast? Here's where the operational discipline really shines through. If we look at the same quarter 2 years ago, they reported a $63 million cash loss.
A huge number.
Fast forward to today, they added $48 million to their cash balance.
That is a $111 million swing in cash flow. It removes any serious concerns about the company's financial stability, their ability to continue as a going concern.
They went from cash burning to cash generating.
In just 24 months. And the best part? They beat their own schedule dramatically. They had initially targeted positive cash flow for mid-2025.
And they hit a win.
They achieved positive cash flow for all of 2024. The transition is complete.
That is a staggering operational achievement. It just fundamentally resets the narrative from startup experiment to major threat.
It does.
But the second, and I'd argue more fundamental, point of skepticism was the loss ratio.
Right, the ultimate measure.
The measure of whether an insurer truly understands the risk they are taking on.
Precisely. And 2 years ago, their loss ratio was 94%.
94%.
Think about what that means. For every dollar of premium they collected, they were paying out 94 cents in claims. That leaves you virtually no room to cover operating costs.
Salaries, rent, marketing.
Nothing. They were hemorrhaging money, and it rightly raised questions. Can AI actually master the science of underwriting?
So what's the number now?
They just reported a 73% loss ratio.
Which is exactly where they said they needed to be. Smack in the middle of their guidance for profitability.
Exactly. That 21 percentage point reduction in just 2 years is described by analysts as nearly unprecedented.
Wow.
This metric alone should eliminate any lingering doubt about their ability to manage risk using their tech.
And if we look at the whole picture, it just speaks volumes about execution. They have met or exceeded their financial targets in every one of the 17 quarters since going public.
17 straight quarters.
They are not just dreamers. They are reliable execution machines. And that reliability is what finally sets the stage for the true accelerated upside growth.
That's the perfect segue. We are moving from fixing the foundation to accelerating the structure. 2 years ago, their long-term growth projection was a 20% compound annual growth rate, or CAGR.
And today?
Today, they are updating that forecast to 30% plus.
And this brings us to the geometric principle driving their profitability, which I think is the most memorable point of this dive. The angle raise.
The angle raise, yes.
This is the core physics of their business model.
The angle raise is the phenomenon where the business grows revenue and scale dramatically. That steepens the angle, while the operational costs stay flat or are even reduced.
So they're getting leverage.
Structural leverage with every new customer, it fundamentally changes the economics of the business.
So how dramatic is that effect in the numbers we have? Let's quantify that geometry.
It's stark. Since their IPO, the overall size of the business has grown 6 times.
6x.
And if we narrow in on just the last 2 years, their retained premium balance, the actual premium from active policies, grew nearly 50%. It moved from approximately $600 million to almost $900 million, a very steep revenue climb.
Okay, so revenue grew by 50%. How did their operating costs behave in that same period?
They decreased.
They went down.
They went down. 2 years ago, the company was running at about $87 million in annual operating costs, excluding, advertising and acquisition costs. Today, that fixed cost structure is actually smaller than it was when the company was significantly smaller.
So they're absorbing massive growth, a 50% increase in volume with fewer fixed dollars.
That's the heavy backpack analogy, isn't it?
It is. The company started out struggling under the weight of these fixed cost servers, engineering teams, data centers.
Yeah.
But as they get more customers, the costs don't climb with the revenue.
Exactly. The fixed cost structure was the heavy backpack 2 years ago. As the business grows into it, that cost becomes tolerable, then comfortable, and eventually a huge competitive advantage. Each new customer costs less to serve than the last.
And what does that physics translate to in terms of real profit?
Well, the gross profit tells the story best. While that retained premium balance grew 50% over 2 years, the gross profit, it tripled in the same period.
Tripled. So profitability is advancing 3 times faster than revenue.
It's defying gravity because the cost structure is stable and the risk selection, that loss ratio, is improving.
And this accelerated profitability, it must set a clear path for black figures.
It does. Their EBITDA margin has more than doubled since the last time we looked at these sources. It's showing a consistent improvement of about 10% annually over the last 5 years.
So they're still on track for positive EBITDA.
Solidly on track for 2026. And this confidence is driven by the acceleration itself. Growth isn't slowing, it's speeding up. We saw 18% in Q3, and Q4 is projected to accelerate to 26%.
So they expect 2025 to be faster than 2024 and 2026 faster than 2025. That's how they get to that 30% plus KGR goal.
The compounding effect is real.
Okay, the financial foundation is solid, but to get from, say, $1 billion in scale to $10 billion, they have to enter the biggest part of the market.
That's the pivot to auto insurance. Renters and pet insurance got the company to its initial scale, but you cannot compete globally without tackling the massive auto market. Lemonade Car has to be the engine for that tenfold increase.
And they haven't been shy about preparing for this.
Not at all. Despite auto being a pretty small part of their current financials, it has been the leading area of investment for years.
Really?
Oh yeah. They have poured the most engineering, data science, and product resources into Lemonade Car. That includes absorbing all the data and experience from the Metro Mile acquisition.
So this has been a stealth investment, just waiting for the right moment. What's the timeline and what is the competitive promise?
The timeline is 2025. They expect to be feature complete that year and ready for an aggressive rollout. And the promise is twofold: an unmatched customer experience, which you'd expect, and critically, an unbeatable price.
Why is price so central in auto insurance? It seems like an industry where customers are pretty sticky.
Because the auto market is incredibly price elastic. It's so sensitive to even small changes in rates. Our sources say if you change the price by just 10 percentage points, the conversion rate, how many visitors become buyers, can shift by 50 to 150%.
That's a huge swing.
Price competitiveness pays massive dividends. It's the fastest way to gain share.
Okay, so now we're at the listener's core skepticism. How can a challenger worth $1 billion beat giants worth 50 or 60 billion on price? The incumbents can absorb huge losses if they want to.
And this is where we return to the core technological advantage. The answer lies in telematics, distribution, and AI automation. But telematics is the real key to that unbeatable price.
But wait, every big insurer claims to use telematics now. They all have apps that track your driving. What makes their approach structurally superior? Why can't the giants just copy them?
It's the difference between a low-resolution snapshot and a high-resolution proprietary underwriting model. Traditional insurers price risk using what the source calls disappointing proxy indicators.
Proxies.
Right. Since they don't know exactly how you drive, they rely on proxies like gender, marital status, education level, even your credit score.
So you're pricing the driver based on demographics, not behavior.
Exactly, and that gives them a low-resolution image, a 2D cardboard cutout of the human risk. And when you use those rough proxies, millions of great drivers look just like poor drivers, and everyone ends up paying a middle-of-the-road price that's too high for the best drivers.
So what does high-resolution telematics look like in practice? How is the Challenger's version different?
Well, if the legacy approach is 2D, this is full HD, 4K, 8K. It's like virtual reality in terms of data depth. This is not just counting hard-braking incidents.
It's more than that.
Much more. They capture data on nearly every foot and inch of driving. They tracked every braking moment, every turn of the wheel, and crucially, data related to distracted driving, like texting while driving.
Wow. So they are moving from pricing based on who you are, what your credit score is, to pricing based on exactly how you behave behind the wheel, minute by minute.
Precisely. This detailed, accurate insight into actual driving behavior makes those old, crude proxies like crash scores irrelevant for underwriting. And when you know the true risk with that level of precision, you can price it with unprecedented accuracy.
So you can cherry pick the best drivers.
You can identify the top 20% of low-risk drivers and offer them a price that the incumbent, burdened by their low-res data, literally cannot match. That's the structural advantage. The giants can't integrate this data into their black hole systems without rebuilding them first.
Okay, let's bring it all together for the listener. The company has fundamentally de-risked its core business. They solved the cash flow problem. They mastered the loss ratio through AI. That operational discipline, combined with the accelerating growth fueled by the angle-raised geometry growing 50% on flat costs, has placed them on a clear path to profitability.
It has.
And the next engine, auto insurance, is ready to deploy using truly high-resolution telematics to gain a definitive structural pricing advantage.
That is the comprehensive summary. The financial trajectory is now solid. Positive EBITDA in 2026 and positive net income in 2027. And the shift from using rough proxies like gender and credit score to using high-resolution real-time driving data. It just fundamentally changes the economics of insurance.
It's a fundamental change in the physics of a $5 trillion industry. And it all comes back to AI and data leverage. So, for you, the listener, to mull over, if AI-driven telematics and massive cost automation deliver such dramatic savings and better risk selection, what will happen to the immense market share currently held by traditional insurers who are structurally unable to adopt this new physics because of their own tech debt and cultural resistance? That seems like a battle that is only just beginning, and the outcome feels increasingly predetermined.